The bad cheerleader jump is the best way to set yourself up for a good rep into your bar muscle up. And this comes down to upper body positioning mostly, and what people tend to do. What we want is to create a straight line from the bar to our tailbone. That's going to be, and I'm using a bar that's a little too low, but that's going to be like this. We want our butt to stick out, have a slight arch in our low back, abs completely soft, and head kind of tucked down like we're pressing our chest toward the floor. This is really hard for most athletes to get and to understand because when they jump up, they want to look at the bar and they have a tendency to be hollow, okay? So a lot of coaches teach people to jump up to the bar in hollow position. I understand the reasons why. I don't do that, but we are just going to acknowledge the fact that people tend to be hollow. So what we don't want is the upper body to be in this position where my torso is vertical and my arm is slightly in front of me. That creates a bend in the shoulder, and as you swing, that shoulder bend will straighten out, effectively slowing your swing. By jumping up to the bar and pushing your tailbone back, you're extending the distance between your tailbone and the vertical plane of the bar. This is going to act like a pendulum to swing you into your bar muscle up. If you don't have a lot of power here, you're going to have to make up for that lack of power somewhere physically, muscularly throughout the rep. That's really hard, especially if you're trying to learn your first bar muscle up. So when you jump up and you're hollow, your hips are now closer to the vertical plane of the bar. If there is less distance on a pendulum, as you pull it back to its vertical plane, when it swings forward, it will obviously not swing forward as far. So by setting yourself up with a bad cheerleader jump, hips back, and trying to get full extension from hands to tailbone, the upper body will be set in the position, again, chest facing downward toward the floor, not vertical. By having that chest facing downward, we have lengthened all the slack from our hands to our tailbone. Now, the other part is your lower body. What do people tend to do when they think it's a big skill? They really rip into it. They try to do extra movement pattern. So people like to go and really lift their feet up. Look, it's called the bad cheerleader. Maybe it's not the greatest name for it, but the good cheerleader is the one that can jump out and touch their toes, right? The bad one is this one. They got the hip hinge, but they couldn't get the feet up. So we want to keep the feet ultra low. It's better to have your hip here and your feet just slightly in front than to have your feet cross that vertical plane. Ideally, we want a straight line from our hip through our foot pointed directly down at the floor beneath the bar. So being just one angle, bend in the hip and the feet pointing right here. I like to think if I take a really strong magnet and I drop it in the toe of my shoe, and if there's a metal plate directly beneath the bar, my foot just wants to go and stick to it, right? You play with magnets near the fridge and they just kind of stick to it as fast as they can. So we want to jump up and have the feet point right there. Just jump up and the feet go bing. So it's almost like the leg has no control, but it does. Your hip flexors should be on. If your hip flexors are not on, then you are not holding your leg in that position. This is also important and a little bit hard to understand. You see, legs have weight. And what we're trying to do is we create this swing, the upper body, so it has all the momentum swinging forward. What is momentum? Momentum is body weight, well, in this case, body weight moving a direction, okay? Now, if my feet lift really high and I've got to straighten them out really fast, how much are my legs weighing as they snap toward the floor? Well, they don't weigh anything. They don't have any weight when things are in free fall. They have no weight. I could be falling, standing on the scale, weigh 0. Okay, so when you are jumping up, if your feet are too high, you end up dropping them really quickly. What does that do? That eliminates the weight of the leg that's hanging off the bar. We want our whole body weight hanging off the bar here. So our legs and our upper body are pulling, and all the extra weight, the weight from our legs and our torso, are now moving in the same direction. This creates more momentum and is the reason why the bar muscle up is easier this way. If you lift your feet up this high and you go whipping them back, well, if the point was to use our hips to go from back to forward, now our feet are driving the opposite direction. And if we have weight going this way and weight going this way, some of this weight is gonna cancel this momentum out. So it stops us, it prevents us from being able to let that swing mature all the way out before we do the rest of the bar muscle up. So get this bad cheerleader position dialed in. This is the most important thing. If this goes wrong, everything else is more difficult. So again, this is basically the position. Hands on the bar, straight line through the shoulder, slight butt out like you're trying to get attention. And from here, from the hip to the foot, and then through the foot to the floor should be a straight line. So hip, foot, floor, because the foot has a magnet in the toe, and underneath the bar is a metal plate the toe really wants to go to. Next part of the bar muscle up is guiding the feet toward that plate. And if it actually had a magnet in your shoe, you wouldn't have to work for it. It would just do that naturally. That's called the target reach. We're not doing that in this video. So just make sure that you're working on this position because it is of the utmost importance that you get this done right. Otherwise, everything else is more difficult in the bar muscle.